Every big commercial studio, like or a publisher, they're afraid of using inappropriate use of IP. They're afraid of getting in love with a new Marvel character that actually so problematic or built on manga character, or it's like derivative from DC universe or something like that. You have to be very, very in the weeds, and sometimes we are, and we trust their creators to build this in the high level of integrity. But the other side, sometimes you just don't know, because that's the thing. When a person steals, it's conscious, it's thoughtful. I want to steal this, and that's why I do that. When AI steals, it's random. So if you rely on your knowledge of all the IPs in the world, and if you miss Naruto or Pikachu or any other like weird character that you are not a fan of, you can actually slip it into the commercial works.
Welcome to the show, Tommy. For those who don't know, CopySight AI is the absolute center of the creative tech and legal tech revolution. Tommy is helping giants like Warner Brothers and Sony confidently use AI. To start, what was the moment you realized the IP copyright problem in Gen AI? And what made you think that it was so massive that it required a company like CopySight AI?
Oh, thank you for the question. It's a really good one. I would say that was a moment in my career when I was part of the Meta Reality Labs, and I was working on several experiences. One of the tasks was like, oh, well, let's just solve the retention problem in the wearable devices. That's not an easy task to do. And we were like, let's just discover a game that will make people to use devices again and again, like basically trying to make them back and have this experience. And to make it really fast, we wanted to build a prototype before New Year to show to Mark, to greenlight the demo. And this game was really fun. It was using your space around you. And I created the whole like tech art for this game, like the characters designs, some level designs and everything in 4 days. Unusual, it takes about 7 to 8 weeks of the team of like 8, 12 people who creating the character designs, levels, outlines and everything. And at some point I brought the whole concept and I said, hey guys, like, do you like it? Everybody's like, oh, this is amazing. This looks really good. Let's try it. And legal team was like, we cannot like post it like internally. And I was like, why? We just don't know who owns this shit. That was the quote. And I was like, if I felt that sounds really weird because I worked on that, I know who created it, but then it was used, the AI was used there. And you ask corporate officers what nerve was not very clear about how you do the ownership. So I discovered the problem of AI generated work ownership, that it's hard to own it. It's you have to prove something, and no one was at that point. There was zero information. The US Corporate Office was not even aware of their position around AI. There was no announcements yet happened. So no one knew how to own AI generated content, what to focus on, inputs, outputs, prompts, what will be the significant human involvement in the process, what's enough amount of significant human involvement. So there was so many questions and zero answers. And I was like, hey, I want to build something that will help you to own your AI assisted work, because I believe you have to own those things. And there's no magic pill, but you have to prove how you created it and have the store it on chain, maybe some having a ledger about this, maybe to have some certain discussions and proof of creation certification, something that will help you to then own the content. So I start to dig this problem, and very clearly, very quickly, I realized that we have to build before, okay, someone's brought me an IP, a new character generated in AI, how I know it's theirs, how I know they not stealing it, how I know it's not based on someone other IP. So we clearly realized that, okay, we need this proof of creation thing, but we also need to have a monitor that will identify most known IPs in the world and make a clear understanding, is it based on it? Is it safe to use or it's not safe to use? So, and that's how we basically build a CopySight. This was two big interferences that we were starting our product with. And IP monitor was one of the most significant kind of expensive technologies, but also we were surprised how good it is, and we didn't realize it until we were comparing our tool to big competitors who have all the funding in the world and have already clients and everything and exist on the market. And then we discovered, oh, we actually state of art monitor that identifies almost everything you know. And it's trained like a vast art curator, human art curator that identifies styles, understands how close it is, and almost see it as a human who knows most of the IPs in the world. And that's kind of, I think that's the biggest difference. And it was like the problem when I first time saw the problem in the big corp to solve it.
Yeah. And just for our listeners as well, Tommy, can you tell them what year did you find this problem and like what year did you start CopySight AI?
So it's very recent. Like someone will tell me, "Do you need this company like 3 years ago?" I would say, "Are you crazy?" Like because this problem was solved for 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the similar problem happened to photograph. And photography was a similar, like an undefined area. Photography was not, it was super hard to copyright and similar for like 7 or 8 years. It was like, oh, we don't know what to do yet. It's not yours. I don't know who is this. It's a public domain. I don't know. So it was like a long story with photography. And 100 years ago, it's still like its solution is clumsy. It's not perfect. But for almost 100 years, we are know how to deal with the problem. With Gen AI, with transformers, and with like generative models, it's very different now. Like you will have a lot of data consumed by models and spitting out IP infringements randomly. So you didn't meant to basically have this character there. You just have it because the cluster of data set is very narrow and you have a very specific, like, okay, you said, I want to have a character, a superhero that is revenging his own family, wearing all black and always angry. And you'll get the Punisher, and it's how it works. And because there's no knowledge about other clusters of superheroes, and that's how you can hack even censored models of VLMs by just prompting it, getting and referring to a very narrow data set. And in this case, you will have a problem for commercial use. Sometimes you do it intentionally, sometimes it's unintentional. And the only problem is it's absolutely random. I mean, we have scandals already. Shopify just made the whole kind of basically they created a template. And I don't know even they knew who they used on that. And then one influencer with 800K followers saw it and called it, oh, it's a psycho AI version of myself. Like, why are you using my likeness? And they removed the template. They actually commercially use it already. So a lot of businesses, thousands of businesses use this template. So now she's suing it right now. They're cooking the case and she's have all the rights to do so. And I don't believe Shopify did it intentionally. The problem was just that they missed it, they slipped. So CopySet can identify likeness of Molly Buzz. This is the influencer name on those content. If Shopify used CopySet at that moment, they would be safe. We just texted. I made a post on LinkedIn and I tagged General Counsel of Shopify saying like, "Hey guys, we should be just friends, and you could have been avoiding the scandal from happening." So that is the approach that CopySite does. We're trying to make sure people who build AI pipelines and use it daily for commercial application, using it ethically and safe. So yeah, it was a less than a year ago. So it's like a year and 5 months overall. We are doing solving this problem when we saw that thing is going on really. So we are pretty fresh in the game.
That's so crazy. And you've already accomplished so much in that 1 year bit.
Thank you.
You've talked about the shift from data copyright to output copyright. Can you
Yeah,
explain why that output layer is the new hygiene level for any
yeah.
enterprise using Gen AI commercially?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before that, you saw it on the legal cases. Everybody was absurdly obsessed with the input, and then they start to dig deeper in the technical thing. So if you train a model, you cannot untrain it. You can try to not to see to if it's the output is too close, it can be get out of the output side, but it's still trained. It still knows the data. It still knows the IP. It still knows the style and it's still there. So no one will ever untrain things and retrain those things. There's other layers of protection. And I think that's the common sense is coming into it, meaning that there's an argument about like fair use or not fair use on the training sets. The argument is like this: so our brain is consuming different data sets. We're seeing images, we're seeing stuff, but then we spit out the new things, maybe somehow inspired and referenced from certain things, but still it's a new thing, and there's a work there. And that's why if human being is watching David Hockney paintings and then creating something very similar but new, it's his. And the style is not copyrighted, so he's safe in legal perspective. With Gen AI is different because it means that you took IPs, original IPs, you train on them, you generate some output training on someone's exact IP, and then this output is actually used for commercial profit, or you actually commercially profiting from using this style, like it happened with Studio Ghibli. When they trained it on that and everybody just start to using it, it become viral. I don't think they expected it to become so viral, but in the end of the day, people were just paying subscription for OpenAI just because they loved to experiment, and they gained a lot of consumers and users, and that means that they basically profited from using someone's IP. It's still very hard. It's still like a really interesting case. It's very precedental because it's still style that is not copyrightable, but hey, you use the IP to create the style, and it's different from human creation. So that is why we were like, okay, we have to talk to Studio Ghibli, and that's what we're doing right now. We have several conversations with the publishing company that owns Studio Ghibli, and they're considering, and also Japan overall, kind of concerned about how many repoffs of anime and manga happens during the year with generative AI. They're losing $50 billion, $15 billion per year, according to Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan, just on the ripoffs of manga and anime that considered to be like a cultural heritage, and it's protected by UNESCO. And it's this is something that we really concerned about. I don't want to stop creativity. I don't want to people be always concerned, oh, I'm stealing this or not. I want to be as this is like a hygiene layer that will just check everything you create to make sure there's nothing there that will get you in trouble. And if you will not use Shopify, I'm just promising you, you'll get in trouble. And right now, there's not much of enforcement. It happens, but there's no too much of enforcement. But I just saying that, like, we already working on several projects where enforcement will use the same technology that used to make sure you're ethically using generative AI. So basically, we're sticking the carrot on the same market. So if you use CopySight to check your content, you probably will not have any troubles from policing tools. If policing tools using CopySight scoring to identify problems with generative AI content, then if you passed it once, you don't need to pass a second time. But if you didn't, you will find the derivative arts based on someone's IP to a certain matter of like confusion and things that are dangerous or things are not by IP holder or IP right owner will be removed, cease and desist, or even fined, or even go to court if the thing is going wild. So before that, all the court cases was around Midjourney used IPs from Disney and Universal, and $29 million lawsuit was there. Anthropic used like thousands of different texts for their training data sets, and they paid 3,000 per book or per article, and having the biggest law settlement in IP law, history by $1.5 billion. This is the biggest thing that ever happened in IP law. In the same time, we have Warner Brothers suing Max and Midjourney for the same use of IPs. But the curious part that how they know that is there. I mean, it's obvious. You see that they can generate Darth Vader, so it's obvious. But how they really will know? The only way to know that there's a pre-infringement or there's potential risk of it is to check outputs. There's no other way because no one sees the data set and nobody's checking the training sets. Everybody checks outputs. So that is why output is so important. And that's why our bet was always on the outputs. And the idea of like all be obsessed with training sets is just not very sustainable because there's clean models, there's some really interesting VLMs there. But if you check every startup that's doing something in Gen AI space, they're using a first of all, they're using from 5 to 12 different models. So even when one model solve this, or one model is clean, there's plenty of others that are not. Creators love reference things. So creators will not buy a clean model. They don't care. They want to reference Batman here. They want to have like things that knowledgeable about most of the IPs because they want to use a certain style, certain artists, and things like that. That was always a thing in art. It's still a thing in design. So we need to have reference points on one side, but we as a business, as a creator, I want to go wild. As a
Yeah.
businessman, I have to check the outputs not to be at risk at this point. So the copy site allows you to play in a sandbox with all kind of creepy things there, with all those IPs and everything, because that's the creative process. We are doing this. And I know that because my background is creative. I was a creative director for so many years. I'm an artist and I do oil painting and I had exhibitions and sold my art. This is a thing that I was doing from age 15. And that's why I know this very specifically that we want to steal work, that great artists steal, this phrase. And so now when you steal, you have to check it first as a business. You don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to make it unethical. You want to reference and have a homage to someone great, but you don't want to steal someone's work and use it commercially because you get in trouble. So that is a thin line that we're trying to build for Gen AI content, right?
Yeah, that and that's very important. So it's like there's two sides to it. So I'm a bit curious, when you first approach a large studio or an enterprise like Warner Brothers,
Hmm.
Sony, Studio
Yeah,
Ghibli, what is the
yeah.
single biggest internal fear or bottleneck that they express using AI generated content? Is it the fear of a lawsuit, or is it the operational
Mhm.
complexity of integrating a compliance layer?
It's actually several things because depending on the ICP, depending on who we're talking about.
Hmm.
Let's take
Mm,
all my three ICPs and it's basically will cover all the fears. Every big commercial studio like or publisher, they're afraid of using inappropriate use of IP. They're afraid of like getting in love with a new Marvel character that actually so problematic or build on manga character or it's like derivative from DC universe or something like that. You have to be a very, very like, in the weeds. And sometimes we are, and we trust their creators to build this in the high level of integrity. But the other side, sometimes you just don't know because that's the thing. When a person steals, it's conscious, it's thoughtful. I want to steal this, and that's why I do it. When AI steals, it's random. So if it's you rely on your knowledge of all the IPs in the world, and if you miss Naruto or Pikachu or any other like weird character that you are not a fan of, you can actually slip it into the commercial work. So that's why this one thing. So they want to check every out of 40 or 50,000 images they do per project, and that's the real numbers from studios. They generate from 40 to 50,000 in couple weeks, in like 10 weeks of pre-production stage. Before they got in love with a character, they want to make sure it's clean. And we were thinking, oh, they're afraid of IP infringements of like someone protected asset. And that's not all true because they're also afraid of being not unique. Like even if it's public domain and technically you can use this character, if it was not a creative attempt or it was not a creative thought, then they don't want to even build it on public domain things just because they seek for uniqueness. They seek for being rare, interesting, and new stuff. And that is and that's the one thing. The other thing is that what the big studios afraid of is that their vendors, their agencies, their illustrators will bring them AI generated work without telling them, or they say in that it was done in this clean model, but it wasn't done in Minimax or something else, some other model. So no one, we interviewed not too many, but we interviewed like 5 or 6 designers who work with big studios. Guys, they just do everything they want, and it doesn't matter what they sign. It's just so you need to have a protection layer. And I'm a big believer in people, but also like Charlie Munger was saying, like, if there will be an opportunity to find a way around, people will find a way around, and that is what creators are really good at. They're creative about that. So now we have to have, so the studios will afraid of like potential IP infringements and risk of unethical use of IP, and that will cause them not a lawsuit. Not that's the lawsuit is the it's a big fear because we have some numbers there, $29 million or $150,000 per infringement, per one infringement. That's the price. But we have another problem, the problem called strikes. And unethical use of AI will cause and many other works of the industry to be very angry at studios, and they can come up with another strike. And I would say in the industry will not survive another strike. It will. It's that's the fear is bigger than just a couple millions of dollars in the lawsuits. It's going just straight to the survival mode. They need to use AI because they need to cut the costs and earn more than they earned last year and this year. Because there's at least 3 big studios got bankrupt last year. So the Hollywood doesn't feel really good. They saying they are, but they are not really feeling good. The other part is they fear of causing another strike or giving another reason to unions to strike. That will that will that will crush the industry. So those two things that's for one type of the clients. Another type of the clients, it's a compliance thing. Let's talk about agencies and advertising agencies. We were reached out by Omnicom and UPP. Omnicom just acquired IPG. It's basically just 3 names that I dropped right now. That's a 60% of advertising market globally.
Wow.
This is all we got. There's the 5 agencies: Havas, Dentsu, Omnicom, IPG, and WPP owning most of the advertising market. So now we have 3 of those companies asking us for a pilot, and the reason for that, I worked in agency before. I worked at BBDO and I worked in Publicis and Saatchi. And the thing is that you came up with the idea in 2 weeks, like building a presentation and ideas and sketches and everything. And then for another 2 weeks and sometimes 3 weeks, your legal team is checking those ideas.
I
Are
see.
they unique? And so this is a huge bottleneck. So you're spending like 4 or 5 weeks on that instead of doing it with AI. We can do it in 1 week, come up with ideas and do sketches because it's generated with a generative AI or AI assisted. And then it checks in minutes with CopySight instead of doing this whole legal check of course, we don't check some texts and like from the policies perspective, but this is the next steps. And this, like hundreds assets of a new campaign could be checked in seconds. And only 2 problematic images can go to a lawyer. So we can cut the compliance process from to 90%, like the 90% of like the time cost. So all this time giving you space to actually do other work and be with your clients, be more attentive to their needs and things like that. So that's where I think those companies saw a biggest benefit. So now we're integrating CopySight into their AI hubs. Every company right now builds like allowed models like a 20, 12, 20 models that allow to use in the ecosystem. So every agency will use those models to generate some output, social media content and things like that. It will become a filter or like a checking mechanism, a guardrail, safe guardrails for generative AI content for all those agencies underneath of those things. So that's a compliance use case. The other part is we have a lot of really interesting things. Like, let's say you just acquired and purchased like a data set of million synthetic images to train your new model, and someone told you that it's clean and there's no IP infringements there, and there's other things that it's kind of cool. Who checks those million images and synthetic things? So who is guaranteeing that it's not hallucinated and things like that? So we can also do data provenance to make sure the data set is clean from potential IP infringements. And that's only just the beginning, guys. We're early on. Yes, we are building it around a year and like 3 months. But also about 3 months, I was just researching and talking to IP lawyers, and I was part of the Antler Acceleration Program. So we were basically working on research and interviews and preparing it before launch. And we're selling this product only since May this year. So, and we already like grew 5x on revenue just because of how much of a need this market has it. And the third ICP is gaming and gaming studios, and it's the last discovered, but we believe it will be the largest market because with IP in the game, you interact much deeper. You have at least one. Every game is having like all those worlds and objects and elements and styles, and everybody is in love with those things, and they're very precise on how they want to be used. So gaming, it will be a huge market where we believe will be a biggest application layer.
Absolutely, yeah. If we just jump into CopySight AI as well, like we know that it's not a checker, it's a safeguard. You
Yeah.
mentioned your technology stack using AI, NLP, computer vision. For the non-technical listener, how does your system actually score the IP risk of a generated asset? And what does that score mean to a legal
Yeah,
team?
it's an amazing question. First of all, there's nothing like that in the world. So nobody actually created a stable persistence scoring that measures likeness for not AI work. So the likeness measurement is something that before, like a free again, 3 years ago, you don't need it. Like there's no reason. It's like this and like that. So in the court they were inviting experts who were saying this. I'm expert in anime and this is Naruto. That's how it was all this like dozens of years. Now it's AI, it spits out from the AI generated model and it's based on someone's IP and as a commercial use or whoever is saying it's a fair use. Doesn't matter. In the end of the day, you have something to a matter of confusion with someone's IP. So to make sure we can see this, we were changing our approach like dramatically. So most of the content moderation solution, they use reverse image search, or they compare pixels to pixels and trying to make sense. This is from this movie or this frame. So basically, they compare their understanding of what, not the understanding of what in the image, but where this image come from. But if you change it, several layers of pixels there is nothing to compare to. So it's blind for most of the AI generated content because every AI generated content, every piece of an AI generated content is derivative. What it means that if you will take a frame from Spider-Man, most of the content moderation solutions will identify, even if you do like it's black and white or turn it, upside down, content ID from YouTube will identify those things. If you will generate a Spider-Man dog or half Hulk, half Captain America, that's a derivative. That's something
Yeah.
that we don't know what to compare to. That will go into the no match found category, meaning that your team will say, oh, it's probably safe, and it's not. And we have the example of Spider-Man dog. We love this. We call this Spider-Man dog experiment because all the proportions and everything on the Spider-Man dog eye generating me journey, it's literally a Spider-Man. All the proportions are there, all the shapes of the eye, or the pattern, the color. It's clearly an infringement. The only difference is in the dog shape. And it's 95% similarity. And we will tell you who created it, and Steve Ditko and Larry Leiber, and it will tell you who's the owner of IP, and it will tell you what's the scoring of it. And the thing where we made it so, of course, it's patented. I cannot tell you all the secret sauce we've done there. A lot of work was done, a lot of research and R&D behind that. But the idea was basically to not to treat IP as one whole thing, but to see elements and compare to as a separate embeddings to elements and elements in general to provide the consistent scoring. So we compare every part of it and we assign weights of elements on the image or on the video to make sure we kind of like watching, face more rather than background and things like that. So in 2 words, we have a very sophisticated technology that will identify likeness of parodies, styles, characters, logos, animated characters, movie characters, celebrity faces, influencers whoever, and iconic designs like fashion brands and some iconic sneakers or laser saber or something like that. So all those things that are also copyrightable, also problematic in use, but do not kind of stand alone as like separate IP or something like that. They're part of the universe. And a lot of reasoning for sure, because sometimes you have an actor and then you have a character that this actor plays. And depending on what tie the character wears, it can go either direction. So if you have a Daniel Radcliffe saying, AI generated Daniel Radcliffe, it will, oh, it's Daniel Radcliffe. But if the Daniel Radcliffe will hold like a little magic wand, it will be Harry Potter and Daniel Radcliffe. So that's how that part works as well. Yeah, that's IP monitor.
That's amazing to hear and learn as well. So say a company like adopts CopySight AI. What is the most immediate, tangible change in their day-to-day operations? And you mentioned like their compliance checks comes down by almost 90%.
Yeah.
That also in, is that the only tangible benefit in their
Mm.
time to market for new content?
I do think that there's a lot of different. Again, we do have several ICPs, three to be, and
Yep.
they have all the different benefits. But mainly, first of all, the first thing you got is the second you sign contract with CopySight, you have a best effort that called in legal practice best effort not to infringe anyone's IP, meaning that if anything slips and anything happens, you said, oh, I actually hired a whole company that only their work is to check all their content to make sure we're not infringing. So whatever has happened, we as a company, we had done everything possible not to infringe. So signing us is legally, it's just a good hygiene. You can say and it probably will be a truth that it was not intentional. The difference between intentional and unintentional kind of violation is huge. And that's why it's so important to justify. That's the first thing you got best effort thing. So now your legal team can actually sleep at night and actually have some sort of peace of mind. The other part is that we're speeding up the process by utilizing and using AI generated content so free and in such a safe environment, they can cut their production line, process from like to 60% cuts. Or one of our clients basically they cut threefold their all production costs by starting using generative AI with CopySight because now they can actually do it. They avoiding risks of unethical use of generative AI. They can show this to unions and show it to people who are concerned, because a lot of creators are also concerned. Hey, if you use generative AI, are you like trying to steal my work? And I said, no, no, no. We have CopySign on board, and this is how it works. So that's the thing. The other thing is the value. Like, let's talk about value-based pricing. Imagine your premiere of your movie is delayed. You can lose from $5 to $25 million on one premiere delay. If we can cut this 60 to 90% on the legal compliance with the content they made, we can actually avoid late launches, late premieres. We also can help to get more movies. Let's say we have a studio that produces 6 movies before AI. Now they can do 12 movies because their generative processes speed up the production pipeline, but also the checkup and legal process is also speeding up. So now we can get another 2 movies during the year. That's a revenue generation stream. And for agencies, same thing. If they cut it, a compliance process 90% from six, and it's not my quote. I mean, head of AI of those companies was like, "Yeah, this is how it works." Similar time for compliance than it's to create the idea. So now we can create idea 50% quicker with AI assistance, but also we can have 90% cuts on compliance process, meaning that is a significant revenue booster. And I do think that that's why people are so excited about it. This is like why we're so small. People don't know us. We don't have any marketing, but we have 47 companies inbound for the last 2 months. So that's what I think is kind of go to market strategy kind of reveals itself.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Because I remember the last time we spoke, you said you had 42 companies, and now
Yeah.
within that short time, you've already
Yeah.
added another
Yeah.
five. This is amazing. If you look at the next year, what is the one thing that has to go right for CopySight to hit its biggest goals? And what is the single biggest constraint?
So we starting with there's a lot of promising data we gain from starting our self-serving pilots thing. Like we don't have like right now I have to manually onboard every client. So we want to make sure we can have self-serving access to our product for most of those clients. I think that will get us from 6 clients per week, as you saw it right now, to 25 to 15, 25 clients that can use our lowest tier, like, and start with some very, very cheap, like $200 just to test the ground with our web tool, or the whole thing integrated with the API. Also, we have several discussions for wholesale deals when we going to the biggest AI resellers and AI production companies and AI tools like Higgsfield or Crea AI, Luma AI. All those companies are extremely boosting right now. They have a great growth. All those companies as well. Everybody in the same time start to sell to enterprise. And the first question: do you know what the first question enterprise asks when they onboard those companies? What about IP? What about copyright? What's going on there? And that's why we also house this. The first deal is already in motion, a wholesale deal in motion, where you pay for using API of CopySight on a larger scale. Talking about hundreds and thousands of operations, up to millions of operations. That will be a great, like, you know, I would say it's a hockey stick in our revenue for sure. The other thing,
Right.
the constraint you mentioned, I think we're working on a very interesting task to solve with video checks, long format video checks, where we checking a certain amount of frames to make sure every significant changes were introduced and we didn't slip anything, but also we saved as much compute as possible. So some videos with a very like slow pace of editing, we can check like 12 frames out of like 3 minutes of video because nothing happened there. Some videos can have like a really like a dynamic motion and dynamic introductions of new angles and characters and objects. So we need to check a little bit more. So we need to find this beautiful balance, and then we have an amazing PhDs and computer reasoning, computer vision people who's working on this tool on this particular problem. But this is, I think, would be a big breakthrough for us. Then people can upload like an hour of video, and we can check everything there, make sure there's no infringement on the AI generated side as well.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. So we're coming to the conclusion, but I want to ask you this. What's something that we need to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah. I would say I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of perspective why I'm doing it, and that there's a bigger problem hides behind it. And this problem is basically the reasoning. I'm an artist. I was like, I was doing illustration. I was trained artist as like a kid's book illustrator in my first degree, and I have master of arts, and history of art was my thing. And I saw that every time a big change is happening, the artistic cluster is suffering. Like some industrial revolution made a lot of artists and craft and fine art artists into industrialization and into design. That's how like Bauhaus school was born and born and like same kind of background. So when we are going through a big, enormous transition, and a lot of creators, and I mean illustrators, designers, and artists, they will left like a side of like financial chain, meaning that about 30% of creators will become operators of the VLMs, and they will be really good at. So everybody who is now practicing and doing things in AI will probably keep their job and doing a lot of cool shit, and this is amazing. The other part is the 70% will be just left out of the chain. If they're not working in AI, they will probably struggle. So how we prevent these things from happening, how we make sure that creators are prospering. And the reason for that, because we need them. We really need them, and AI companies need them. The problem, what we're working on right now, is the synthetic data makes VLMs degrade in the third generation. So whenever you train it on the third generation, you have like a significant signs of degrading, and we need to have inputs of new data, and we already train on everything humanity created ever in the history. So now we need new updates, new images, doodles, and creations. We need new IPs to train new models, otherwise we will have some problems and we have a deficit of the content. Buddy who is doing something significant in that area can monetize their talents. So if you created a doodle, you can give it to the system, and now we can train on that. And every time commercial company or business will generate something look alike your IP, you will get paid. And this royalty distribution that based on our similarity scoring is something we are very passionate about. And I wanted to say that if you don't believe this statement, I just invite you to look at Stack Overflow case. Whenever Stack Overflow were the main source of data for white labeling, white coding solutions. And now when Cloud and ChatGPT were having abilities of like generating code, people were not posting things and people were not asking questions
I
from
see.
engineer to another engineer. There's a significant drop on usage of Stack Overflow. People just don't post new content. So now the database that they already scraped from Stack Overflow is there, and we trade on that. But who creates new one? And how we create new one? Is it like all synthetic generated, or we need people to still work on this data? So that's an interesting question. I don't know how they solve it for code, but I think that I know how to solve it for image generation and for VLMs and visual art. We need to make sure everyone who is capable of creating ingenious or talented work have to be prospering from that and can monetize their talent and monetize their IP. So that is a big vision of CopySight, and we start with delivering value today to the studios and gaming studios and agencies, but we actually aiming to become this major IP marketplace. So we'll help people to earn, to be safe with their data, and actually provide a lot of value to creative businesses.
Tommy, this has been an incredible deep dive, and I've learned so much about the creative economy in itself. Where can people find you and CopySight AI online?
I would say reach me out on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active in Instagram, and go to our website. Hopefully, in a couple of weeks from now, there will be self-serving update, and you can actually just try the product. But yeah, right now everything is a precedent for us. So if you want to copyright AI work, you can come to us. We are the only company in the country right now that can help you to copyright AI assisted work with U.S. Corporate Office. If you want to just check and test the pipeline, we can give you an access to our API. And if you use Comfy UI, in a couple of weeks we'll have Comfy UI node that you can add to your pipeline and use it commercially just to kind of see and check every output that you produce. And yeah, reach me out directly, and I hope you can share my LinkedIn link or my email. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tommy. You're an incredibly insightful person. I'm so happy to have you. I'd love to catch up in the future and see the heights
Thank you.
CopySight AI has reached. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I hope we'll see each other again and make another update on something new that we cooked, and hear from you as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.